welcome back. I am so excited. My good friend Madison Paige is actually joining us today. She is a business growth specialist. She really specifically works with product-based businesses, which is incredible because you guys know I'm a service-based girly. So to have someone who has the knowledge of product-based businesses and how they scale and how they operate and challenges that they're facing in the market today was incredible. We definitely touched on that. But she also is a top-rated podcast host. She has her small business growth podcast, which literally she's been running now for over 350 episodes, 4 or 5 years now. And she's been a TED Talk speaker. She's literally done so many incredible things. And she has been an entrepreneur since she was basically in diapers. Her parents were entrepreneurs. She talks about being a, partner to her parents while also being an employee to her parents, while also being a, daughter, and just like the navigation of that, how she transitioned into finding peace and balance and freedom within her own business. We talked a lot about growing a community online. We talked a lot about how her podcast has grown over the years. So if you guys are interested in any of those things, I'm very excited that Madison is with us today. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, Madison Paige, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Oh, I'm so excited to chat.
Okay, I have to give people a little bit of context of how we met. So we met at an event 2 summers ago, right? Has it been 2 summers?
Yes, it has.
We went to an event and I remember meeting Madison and I was like, oh my God, this girl has so much energy. She's probably a business coach. And then I found out that you do product-based businesses. And I was like, oh shit, don't know anything about that world. And we really haven't connected a lot since until the last couple months. I've been seeing so much of your content. I also have been working with a lot of business owners who are service-based, who want to get into product-based.
Yes.
So I want to hear about where's your experience in product? How did you start working with product-based founders? Can you get a little bit of context there?
Totally. My story's kind of unconventional. I've just been always a business owner. I have an estimated 12 businesses before I was 18. We have found dog walking, lemonade stands, bracelet making. I was making slideshows for weddings. It was just from a young age. I was just the person that needed a project. I would watch a movie and be if it was a wedding planner, oh my gosh, I was being a wedding planner the next week, mapping it all out. It was just always who I was. And I was 12 years old. My parents bought an adventure resort, whitewater rafting, zip lining, paintballing, cabins, camping. It solidified my love for business because I got to see the behind the scenes. I was doing reservation phone calls at 14. I was doing the marketing at 15. By 17, I was the operations manager, and I pretty much burnt out by 20 years old. And I loved the business, but it was, it's a seasonal business. It was very high touch. I was on the property, it was 17-hour days, pretty much from April to October. It was go, 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 because we were seasonal. And I went to college for business management and marketing. When I was in college, I was bored. So I started a sustainability blog, started selling a bunch of products there. At first, nobody gave a shit about my products I was trying to sell. I'm okay, I've done marketing for a while. I'm in school for marketing. Why can I not sell these dang products? And then eventually I really dove into it. Okay, how do I do this? And I really figured it out. And I started to sell a bunch of products. I sold $30,000 of products in 6 weeks once I really started to dive into the strategy of it. And then people in my college town started to see my blog. They wanted me to teach them how to do their social media. So it kind of started, I was doing social media management, turned into social media coaching once I graduated. And then it just kind of evolved. And I've now worked with people in 75 plus industries, 500 plus different product-based business owners across all sorts of different breadths of things.
Yeah. I mean, you're a fucking powerhouse. That's for sure. And it's really interesting because I remember hearing that about your story of your parents being entrepreneurs and starting this business. And I think it's so interesting when you see people who have entrepreneurship in their family and how that impacts them. Some people gravitate away from it. Some people fucking embrace it. You obviously embraced it. And then other people who don't. Did you like the idea of business because of the financials, or was it the creative? Was it the ability that you could just create your own path? Because I feel when you were talking, a lot of it was just you got so inspired by what was possible that you're I'm just gonna run with that. It wasn't really about the money or the business necessarily. It was the curiosity.
My dad's a financial advisor, and we have found a Happy Father's Day card from when I was 12 years old. And it was a taxes joke on the front of the card. And my dad and I were sitting down doing his taxes. And it was for a sporting goods fishing store. And I was office expense ? That was literally my funny Father's Day card to my dad. So I was very involved. I was just always interested in it. And I could see the financial gain from it because I helped him with his taxes at a young age. I could see my dad was always very vocal about all of it. I could also see the freedom because I was running my family's business at a very young age. I could see the oh my gosh, like I could do anything. But I was always the kid that was just inspired. I mean, my grandfather had his own business. My uncles have his own business. My whole family are entrepreneurs. And so when I went to college for business management and marketing, and we took all these classes, they basically just teach you how to be a good corporate employee. I was like, no, like this is not applicable to me. I just never went into it thinking I was not going to be a business owner. I never was really in it for the money until I started making money. And then it's like, you're like, oh wait, the money actually gives me freedom. It's not that I want money to buy, more, and it's fine if you do, but like Chanel bags and like mansions and things like that. It's nice. Don't get me wrong. It's nice. I'll do it. But I like the freedom that the money allows me to give. So, the traveling and being able to know that if my car breaks down, I'll just go buy a new one. Like, it's like one of those more like security safety measures that I could see at a young age, but it was always just the inspiration, the like not wanting to be kind of held down by other people kind of telling me what to do. The idea, sometimes I call my friends at like 10 a.m. on a Tuesday and they're like, what's up? What's wrong? I'm at work. And I'm like, oh gosh, forgot about that. So sorry. I'll call you later. And you forget that like not everybody can take lunch or go out for lunch or whatever. And that was what was always my driver.
Yeah. Why did you go to college?
Honestly, it's a great question.
I was curious.
I think I just think it was one of those things. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up very Catholic, very traditional. I think it was just like the natural progression. I don't think there was like a question in my mind that it wasn't something I was going to do. At the time I was going to college, I really thought I was just going to run my family's business. And so when I went to college, I chose the degrees that I thought would really help me and run my family's business the best. And then I don't know, I stuck it out. I went through it. I think I was a good like model student. All right. Like it was just like kind of the next steps. In college, I came into it with, 18 plus credits. And so it was just kind of like, all right, I double majored in 3 years. It was just like one of those things that was like boom, boom, boom. And because my family's business was seasonal, the time that I had to be like on my family's business was opposite of college. So I was like, well, I'll just go to school. I'll learn all of this stuff. And then I had a reservation phone in my college dorm. I like petitioned the college to get like this phone system set up in my college dorm. Like it was just ridiculous, but it was just something to do in the off season, I guess.
What do you like about working with your parents? Like, did you like how they did things? Did you like being part of it? Were you like, I love this, but I want to run with it my own way? Like, what was your experience in working with them? Because that's very interesting being a daughter while also being an employee, while also being like a partner. You played a lot of roles at a very young age.
Yeah, it's definitely a layered relationship. And we have since like left the business. It's another story, but we have since left the business. And I think our relationship is better without the layers in a lot of ways. My parents are actually visiting me now. I haven't seen them in like 5 months. And they're visiting me now. They would probably be chuckling in the background if they were here. But it does take a different level. My family was very close. It does also allow you, there's also like not the layer of, my mom would be like, hey, I want to do this. I'd be like, no, that's a terrible freaking idea. I hate that. It almost like blurs the lines a little bit of, you can be in corporate or like in a job, you're kind of like trying to say everything very astute. It's like not that way in a family business. And I think it's not always the best in some ways, but like we were kind of talking about off camera, working with people that are close to us, it is just a different relationship. You have to be able to do it. And it came with its own struggles, but I do think like my mom and I can look at each other and know what the other person is thinking now. Like her and I have gotten to be such a point of we have such a similar different way, but I do think why I wanted to run a business is because I wanted to run it differently than my family did. And because I was technically an employee, I could share my opinion, but the final say was still my parents. And I could look at it and I could say, oh, I want to run this a different way. I want to do it this way, especially how on call we were. So like I was truly on call 24/7. My phone still to this day, 5 years later after leaving the business, I can't sleep with my phone on do not disturb because I'm afraid somebody's going to call me and need something. Because I would get the emergency phone calls on the campground at 1:00 in the morning and have to be like, all right, let me get up and like help you get to your campground, help you get to your cabin. Something's broken. Like I'll go fix it any hours of the day. So it's molded how I teach because I teach that freedom-based lifestyle, that more balance-based approach, very like stronger boundaries in business and having to understand we got to hustle, you got to do that, but we do need to be able to like step outside of business every once in a while because I did not have that for a long time.
Yeah. When did you feel like you developed that? Did you hit a breaking point or you just put discipline into your routine to the point where you're like, I refuse to continue down this path?
Yeah, I think, the frontal lobe started to develop and I was like 20, 21 and I started to be like, holy shit, like this is absolutely ridiculous. I'm about as extroverted as it comes. Like I am somebody that if I'm alone for a week, I feel like I like can go to a coffee shop and just like talk to the receptionist and like get a little bit of energy back. I start coming back to life. And by August, the end of the season, I would want to be like a hobbit in a hobbit hole for like 6 weeks. I'm like, nobody talk to me. I can't talk to anybody. I would lose like 15 pounds that I didn't need to lose every single summer. I was just a stress ball. And honestly, I had always said from in high school, I would say, I just love who I am at this place. It was like, I felt like I was my best self there. I was like organized. I was confident. I was like running shit. I loved it. And then when it got to the point of, I started to not feel that way. I started to be irritable. I started to like, lash out in ways that I didn't like to. I would look back and be like, why did I handle that situation that way? When I didn't start to feel like my best self at this place, I was like, oh, like something's wrong. I am way too overexhausted. I would look back and people, I don't remember weeks of the business. Like I don't remember weeks. We have employees that would come for 6 to 8 weeks and I barely remember meeting them. I would have conversations with my friends and they're like, hey, like that was kind of crazy. And I'm like, couldn't even tell you. I was just like in this other mode. And once I started realizing all of those other things, it was just like, oh, this is not who I want to be. I was just not present, not able to do anything. I wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping, like my wellness was bad. And so I had to kind of snap that. And then when I started my own business, because it overlapped, I would be done with that company for the season. I would go back and like, do the social media management or whatever. And I would run my own business simultaneously. And I'd be like, this isn't, I can sit in my PJs, make double the amount of money and not have to work 17-hour days. Like it didn't have to be that way. And so once I could kind of see the contrast, I was like, oh man, I'm like never going back to that. And if I were to be running my family's business, things would look very differently even to this day than when I was there, just because it's a difficult business, but it's something that, I would have a totally different way to do it because even for the other employees, it just wasn't sustainable.
Right. I want to ask you about your definition of freedom because I think that there's a very interesting dynamic we obviously work in online businesses. We get inundated with a lot of content and opinions and ideas. And I feel like there's like this duality of like, you should want freedom. You should want to be able to sit on the beach. You should want to be able to not work a lot and make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I've always struggled with that narrative because one, and I talked about this on your podcast, of like, I believe you have to hustle in order to learn how to create that. I think you can be taught it. I think you can have coaches that can help you integrate that early on and set certain principles in the way that you approach business. But I agree that. And also too, freedom to me never felt like I had to have a fully empty calendar.
No.
And so
I love my business.
I do too. And so I think people really struggle because I think people believe that they have to fall into this narrative of like, I want an empty calendar. I want freedom. I want to like not work. I want to like not have a lot of client call and that's what freedom is. But then I also think you talked about freedom more from the lens of like, I want to just do what I want to do when I want to do, but that doesn't mean that you can't also have a 40-hour work week. So like, when you think of freedom, I'm sure it's evolved, but like, how do you define that now for yourself?
Yeah, I see freedom as like freedom from and freedom to. It's like freedom from worry, freedom from stress of like, where is my rent payment going to come from? Freedom from worry of, again, if anything breaks in my house, I know that I'm going to be able to fix it because I have the freedom, because I've built that. And then there's also the freedom to, and the freedom to is the like luxury stuff that you're able to do. And luxury doesn't mean it has to be expensive. It can be going to lunch at noon on a Wednesday because your friends are doing it. It can be freedom to work and travel if you want to. I lived out of a bus for 2 years and traveled like the country and lived out of the bus with my fiance, and we were able to do that. Freedom from allows you to feel very secure in life. It allows you to feel like there's nothing like stress from money because you need it to live. And so freedom from allows you to have kind of that financial freedom. But the freedom to is the lifestyle, is the passion too, like freedom to literally do what you want on your day-to-day basis, like freedom to have an empty schedule if you want to do it. And I think everybody's freedom definition is a little different. Some people want financial, time, schedule, like location, passion, whatever that might be. It really is just being able to actually curate the life you want to live. And that to some people, I preach freedom and I still work probably 40 hours a week because I love my business. I want to do it. There's some weeks my family's here. I haven't seen them. I'm probably going to work less than 15 hours this week because I would have been able to kind of adapt that and figure that out. And so to me, freedom really just means being able to like choose, you being able to choose and live the life and kind of curate the life that you want. I have some clients that have work a 9 to 5 and they have kids, and like they're still trying to build freedom, and freedom to them means that they can quit their 9 to 5 eventually and be home with their kids. Some people, freedom means I want to be able to get my husband to, leave his really demanding job or not have to work 80 hours so he can be home more often. Some people, it means, I want to make 7 figures and like literally live in a lavish penthouse in New York City. And that's awesome. And I love that for them. But it really is, everybody's definition is a little bit different. And I think even if you look at all of those people that first were preaching hustle and then they preached freedom and they were like, my calendar's empty, a lot of them are trying to find this happy medium. Because if you're somebody that hustled, got to this 7-figure, multiple 7-figure, super successful, and then you go all the way to this other side, like you loved that. Like that was passion filled. You were inspired. Like people that are able to really break it down and do that are going to need some sort of balance in between. So I see this a lot. I saw Angie Leaf, who she is, talking the other day about how she hustled, built this big business, and then was like, great, now I've built freedom and I'm just going to like coast and be a lizard in the sun for a couple of months. And she like got depressed. And it's because we need to find this balance. And so to me, freedom really is the ability to choose, the ability to curate your life, the ability to build balance in your day-to-day life where you can take trips, you can stay at home, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. It's just the not having to have that rigid, I need to do this in order to be able to survive or in order to be able to make money or to be able to like, it's just not having to operate out of like lack and scarcity.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a true statement about you, but when you talk, like, I feel like I'm listening to myself sometimes because I hustled. I was a hustler in high school. I paid my way through college. I hustled in my 20s. I always had multiple jobs, and I liked hustle. And actually, one of the hardest things about entrepreneurship for me was like I had almost so much freedom that I was like,
me too.
I feel lost.
Yes.
And so I'm curious, like when you then kind of came into this space, like what did you struggle with at first? Did you feel a lot of heaviness in freedom of your calendar of like, oh, I don't have something to do? Did you fill it with time? Like, how do you navigate being gracious to yourself and the fact that you don't have to be on or working just because you have the time to?
Yes.
And you actually could go maybe fill that with something fun. Because I really struggled with that. I was like, I cannot work today and go do something fun, but what if sales are down? Should I go work? Like that balance of like, you have the ability to just pour into your job more, but is that the actual right thing to do? So I don't know. Did you struggle with that a little bit, or did you ever get to the point where you feel like you could manage that, or is that like just a lifelong journey for you?
Totally. I honestly think it's a practice because there's still days where I'm like, it's 7 p.m. and I'm click-clacking away still. And my fiance comes up, he's like, shut the laptop. Like, you don't need to be doing that right now. And so I think it's a lifelong practice. And for somebody like me, I was actually diagnosed with PTSD from overworking myself at a very young age. And so I am, like I said, my phone has to be next to my bed. And I've tried to like do exposure therapy and it's still in my head. I don't sleep as well. If my phone is in a different room on do not disturb and I can't see it, I don't sleep as well because I'm literally like my subconscious feels like if somebody needs me, I need to be available. There's pieces of me still to this day that I'm like, I do need to work sometimes. And I feel that. And so I think it is a lifelong practice. At first, I was incredibly structured with this business. And to say that I didn't hustle to grow the business that I have is wrong. And I mean, and I was lucky that like, it was right in the beginning of COVID that I was kind of sitting down and it just so happened that way. I started it in like the November before COVID happened. And I was like, I'm going to work 9 to 9. There's nothing else to do. I'll go for a 3-mile walk every day. And then 9 to 9, I'm working on my business. This is great. Like it gives me such an excuse to just sit here. And I worked really hard. And I do attribute a lot of my success to that point of hustle. But like I had every minute time blocked in my calendar. It was like I knew exactly what I was doing. I was very structured. And I always say the line, like, you need to be structured when you can be. So when you don't want to be, you don't have to be. And so like be structured when you have the time to be structured. So like, I have structured business hours still, but if somebody calls me and they're like, hey, I want to go co-work. Do you want to join me at a coffee shop? I'm like, let me look at my calendar. Yeah, I feel like I can do that. Or my family called me and said, hey, we're going to fly in, spend a week there. Does this week work? I'm able to move things around and be able to make it happen. But I know next week is going to be more structured because this week was a little bit less, and that's okay. So I think for me, it's really, you're never going to find perfect balance. Like when I say balance, I don't mean 50-50. I don't mean you're sleeping for 33% of your day, you're hanging out 33% of your day, and you're working 33% of your day. I'm saying you're able to choose, you're able to create. And so at first I had to hustle for sure. And I did. And I love hustle. And I'm sure you agree with that. Like I love to go back and like when I have a new project and like I can get really gritty with it and get into it. But there's also a piece of me that like loves a lifestyle. I love the lifestyle that my business gives me. So I have to be able to do both. And so, there's periods of time that I'm working more hours than the next, and that's okay. But I do think it's a lifelong practice because I think there's times that things come up that I still feel this. So I'm getting married in October, and my fiance is like, yo, you should probably take, the 10 days off for our honeymoon. And I was like, huh. It's like, wow, I haven't done that in a really long time. Is like actually he's like, I want it to be like disconnected, unplugged. And I'm already like, oh my gosh, like, what if that's during my busy season? What if that's during the holidays? What are my clients going to do? And so I feel that spiral happening. And it's just something you kind of have to work through. I mean, I see it as a mindset block. And so you have to be able to work through some of those things. And sure, like there is always an opportunity cost. Anytime you're choosing lifestyle, you're not choosing something else. But that's okay because the rest isn't always a luxury. Sometimes it can actually help you grow your business. Because I know I'll come back from that honeymoon and I'll be inspired and I'll be excited and I'm excited to get back into it. And you'll feel kind of that pull again.
Yeah, time away I think is really, really critical. I also appreciate the fact that you said like I did hustle in the beginning of my business. I'm always very adamant about that. I have, clients that will come and be like, you just made it look so easy. And I'm like, yeah, that's called marketing. Like, but also like you're seeing my business 3 years in. Like I worked a 9 to 5 until I had made almost $300,000. Like, I mean, that was insane. And I was working all the time. I had 65 sales calls in a week and a half. Like
crazy.
all the things, right? Like, you just do all the crazy shit. And like, I'm curious for you because you work with business owners, and I'm sure some are very clear about the hustle and they understand that and they know that the hustle can diminish as their business scales.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you also deal with people who maybe come in with unrealistic expectations about what it takes to be a business owner. And the thing that I've always said is not everyone is meant to be a business owner, nor should everyone be a business owner or they want to be a business owner. And that doesn't mean that they're not good enough. It's just some people don't want that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of benefits in 9 to 5s. Where do you think like entrepreneurs are missing the mark when it comes to realistic expectations in business? Whether that's marketing, how long it takes, how many hours they should be working. I think that you can go a lot of different directions in there, but I'm just curious about your perception because I have so many thoughts on this topic. So yeah, where do you feel like entrepreneurs miss the mark there?
I feel like, working just a few hours is so glamorized. I think, there's so many people out there and I know people that talk about how little they work. And I know behind the scenes, they're working a lot. They're working their little booties off. And this is why I am so transparent when I talk about balance. I'm not talking about like freedom and I'm not working all day long. Like I am sitting here from like 10 to 4 at least every day. Like I'm sitting here doing my thing. And so I think, people miss the mark on seeing all of these, especially in the service-based world. Like they see all of these, I made 100K in, whatever, 3 months. I had all of these things in just a couple of months, but they don't actually see the work that goes into that. And so they think like, okay, well, I'm just going to learn how to do this and like, it'll be fine and I'll get there. And some people do, but having those unreal expectations of how quick something can happen. And I also think at the same time, they can see, oh, I'm working 15-hour weeks. And so, and I'm making 7 figures. That's awesome. But that doesn't mean that that's where they were in the beginning. Again, you're looking at you from 3 years into your business. And so I think on one side, there's unreal expectations of how quick it is. And I also think, how slow it also can't be. Like, I think sometimes, some people think how little time it can actually take. I have clients that, again, they work a 9 to 5, they have kids at home and they get like, from maybe 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. to work on their business. And the amount of growth you're able to do in 2 hours a day is going to be a lot harder than the amount of growth you're going to be able to do if you had your full schedule. So I've actually told people like, hey, if we look at your 9 to 5 and we look at the momentum that you're actually getting right now, if you were able to have an extra 40 hours a week, 40 hours off of your brain power, what would you actually be able to do? And so I do think sometimes, and I don't know if you feel this, like you waited till you were at 300K to quit your 9 to 5, but sometimes I do think people almost wait too long. They would actually be able to reach bigger goals sooner because they have more time, more brain power, more effort. I mean, there's a lot of ways that I think there's misconceptions in business in general. I think people think that it can actually be balanced, and balance doesn't always exist. It's a practice. It doesn't mean you ever like reach a destination. There's very few like, I'm at the destination, I'm good in business. You do a lot of times, it's a constant up and down, constant practice. Markets change, industries change, social media changes. There's so many things that we're constantly chasing and trying to find.
I think that's my like biggest, I don't want to say qualm, but like I think a lot of people assume whether they hire a coach to give it to them or whatever, there's like truly a blueprint. Like if you follow the framework, it works. If you follow the thing, it works. And the hard thing about business that I think a lot of people miss is like nuances. And now I teach a lot of marketing, so I'd be curious about this from a marketing standpoint with your clients. But like when I'm working with clients, they're like, well, I did the problem aware piece of content. And I'm like, Yeah, but like the video is really blurry and like really boring to watch. So no one actually read the problemware piece. So like
Yeah.
that, or like that they're like, well, I did X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, but yeah, but it's really confusing like what you actually do. Like I don't know, and like it's those little bits. Like people do the 90% and they think that that gives them the 100% result. Like,
Yeah.
and what I always tell people, and I always feel like I get this statistic or this like fact wrong. So I'm always like, fuck, I need to like
It's
I need
close.
to go
Yeah.
find the details and make sure I'm
The
not saying,
margin of error.
someone said it to me, so I'm gonna regurgitate it the way I remember it, and it's probably wrong. But ice melts at like what 32 degrees, right? Like you sit at melt ice there, it literally will not even start to melt until it hits there. So sometimes you're at 30 degrees, like you've done almost everything right, but you haven't done that right, and nothing works until you get to 32 degrees. And it's so difficult because people are like, I've done all the work. Why isn't it happening? And I'm like, that 2% makes all the difference. And I think that that's what I have always really struggled with business owners is they like come in, they're like, well, I posted today. And I'm like, okay, great. Go post 10 more, try this. And they're like, but I feel like I'm just trying a lot of stuff. And I'm like, that's a lot of business this has worked in the past. But then I look at like certain people that have completely disrupted their industry and completely changed the way people purchase. And I'm like, they came in and tested stuff that hadn't been done before. And like so much of marketing, sales, that's what a lot of people care about in business, product demand is so much about testing and refining and like just being curious. And I think for you and I, we have very like high energy, go. We probably have a lot of capacity to test it without feeling like we're failing. Like it's like, I'm just gonna try, I'm trying to try. I don't think that that's very common in a lot of people. I think a lot of people, they do it. They're like, I checked my box, and they're like, where's my grade? Where's my A?
And nobody's saying yes yet.
Yeah, they get very confused. So like, how do you navigate that with your clients? Because I'm just genuinely curious. I find different clients handle those things different ways, but like, how do you navigate the like, you've done 90% of it, but the last 10% is what get you the results. Sorry, kiddo. Like of support, For
sure. Well, and I think you're so right there is that businesses, like it's a constant testing game. It's constantly like, okay, this is working, but now let me try one more thing. Let me try this. Let me try that. And like, let me see if I can get something to work better. I always say disruptive brands are built in the details because it's like, I'll tell they're like, hey, nobody is converting on this message. And I'm like, all right, let's reword this one line. And they're like, you think that one line is going to make a difference? I'm like, it can. You can change one word in a caption or in a call to action and something totally changes. And it gets to the point, especially in the service-based world, it's kind of an echo chamber where like everybody does the same thing. We see it work from one person, and then all of a sudden you see 100 other people try to do the exact same thing, and then everybody gets numb to it until one person does something new, somebody sees it work and like, oh, I kind of like that. Let me try it again. And so it's almost being, you have to be different than everybody. You have to understand what's working, but you also have to try your own things. I mean, it's really just like micro failures over and over and over again. Right. But failing isn't like, it's good. It's good. I had a client the other day. She was like, hey, Maddie, I've reached out to 10 people to get my product in their stores wholesale, and I've gotten like terrible responses. I'm like, great. There's a 1% conversion rate on pitching people to be in their stores. So that means you need to do 90 more and you'll get a yes. And it's like, yeah, I think a lot of it has to be looking at the statistics of it can help you. I do think a lot of it is like, okay, let's refine it. Let's see like, how can we make it better? And also just understanding that like grit is a part of business. And I say that to my clients. And I think, the expectations have to be set. Even my clients that are pre-revenue, they haven't launched yet. And, they have 400 followers on Instagram and they're like ready to launch and they're like so excited about it. I'm like, I just want to let you know, this is probably going to be pretty anticlimactic for you. It's like telling people before it happens, because then at least they go into it knowing that like, business is a numbers game. And if you have 150 people following you, you have 40 people on a wait list, that's incredible. I'm so happy for you. But like from a conversion standpoint, and I think I would expect you and I to be similar on this. I'm a numbers gal. Like I can understand conversion rates. So like, yeah, if you have 40 people on a wait list, the average conversion rate is 20%. That's awesome. This is how many sales we can expect if things are good. And so I think blaming numbers a lot of times is good because it is data that you can say, hey, this is the average, these are statistics. This is what's going on. And so it at least kind of helps people feel like they aren't alone in it, or, like it is hard. You have to get a lot of no's. And I think there's so many case studies out there of people that are like, I pitched 1,000 people before I got one yes, but that one yes was Target. And then I got into Target and that's incredible. And that's all you needed. And then that kickstarted your business. You hear this from podcasters. I pitched 100 celebrities and then I got Miley Cyrus and Miley Cyrus blew up my business. That's awesome. That's like, I think that's Alex Cooper. Yeah. And so it's like, there's so many of those that you can you have to keep getting no's. And I like to, at this point, getting a no from somebody is like, all right, that's fine. Like, it's like, it just has to roll off your back because you're just going to get it. It's like, okay, why did they say no? How can I improve it? Let's try to figure that out. And I think that's a very, it's a little bit more of like that masculine approach to business way to think of it, but it's how it helps me, because if we take everything emotionally, you can really, really dive deep into the emotional world there.
For sure. I want to actually ask you about your podcast. How long ago did you start it? You just celebrated 350 episodes?
50 episodes, yeah. I started it in 2020, because everybody was starting podcasts in 2020 as everything started kicking off. And I applied and it said it would take 6 months to get approved. And then it was 3 weeks. And it was like, hi, you have a podcast. And I was on a trip, and I got the email that was like, your podcast has been approved 3 weeks after submitting it. And so then I was like, well, I have a podcast. And I started it. It was March of 2020. And so I have been doing it. I do 2 episodes a week, small business growth podcast. I picked a title that is the least sexy name possible. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made because it's just so searchable. I have lots of hours out there of me chit chatting away.
Yeah. Okay. So you chose the simple name. I've already talked about the fact that, well, off camera, I'll explain this. I have been told by many people that follow Maddie's podcast, they're like, you need to take some notes from Maddie, because Maddie is very searchable, very SEO driven. And I look at full plate of pasta with my very goals. I think one's called Big Dick Energy. What the fuck's that about? It's just funny. I also am 50 episodes in, you're 350. So I have many failures ahead of me in my journey. Yeah. But did you start a podcast just because everyone was doing it, so you felt like it? Did you have the creative outlet for it? I'm assuming there has to be more to it than just it's time to launch a podcast.
Yeah. I'm a chatter. I'm a chit-chatty gal. And it was kind of before podcast. Podcast, I feel like everybody has a podcast now. It's crazy. And, I think I just saw it I'm a talker. And I knew if I could get my voice in front of people, they would listen and they would like it. And I would listen to business podcasts and I felt like they were stuffy. I felt like they were boring. I felt like I never wanted to get through the episode. I felt like the interviews were here's a question. And then it's they give you a really deep, in-depth, they almost trauma dump on you. And they're like, great answer. Next question. I'm wait, there's so much more we can dive into there. I want it to be a conversation. If this was me, we could chat and have a conversation. And so I call my podcast hyper conversational because I really do want it to be low key. And I think it's something that I did that was very different than a lot of podcasts is I do very little editing. I did very little editing to the day of. I was in my bus for 2 years. You could hear trains in the background sometimes, birds chirping. And I'm sorry, this is just the lifestyle that I live in. If you want to listen to me, this is what it's going to come with. And I can just talk better than I can get it out there. It's easier for me to, I'm a verbal processor. So I think other people are too. And people, it's so funny. People will be like, oh, my baby can't sleep in the car unless we're listening to your voice, which I think is hysterical. And it's just
what a compliment.
I'm oh my gosh, my little Midwest accent, must be so soothing. But it's one of those things that I knew it was such a strong nurture point, and community has been at the core of everything that I wanted to build. And I was what better way than actually being able to talk and have conversations, and they could submit questions to me. And I've been doing coaching session episodes on my podcast for years now where people submit a question and I answer it on the podcast because I know I wanted people to be able to find the answers to their questions. And I also think that's helped in a searchability standpoint because my name is how do I get visibility on Instagram in 2025? Because that's what people are searching. It's what people are asking me. And so I think that's really helped as well. But really thinking of my podcast as a way to give back, provide value, and nurture. 95% of my clients come from my podcast. It's just been my top of funnel forever. And people say that they've asked their Alexa, play me a business growth podcast. And I'm the podcast that comes up because my name is so searchable. And it's just been, it's been great. And it's crazy to me still to this day where I'm doing all of this marketing on Instagram and I get a lead from my podcast that doesn't even follow me on Instagram. I'm all right, well, it's kind of, it just, yes, right.
My podcast vision was never necessarily to be a marketing channel for my business. It kind of was its own brand. Yours obviously is.
Yes.
But you said something really impactful, community is always at the center of what you do. And I think that is going to be a trend that is going to continue to grow. You obviously were the early part of that trend. Did you adopt that from your parents? Where did that come from? Your desire to build community? Or are you just I'm such an extrovert. I just want to give warm hugs to people every day. How did you know to do that in business? Because that was literally changed probably everything for you.
It did. Well, and that was really the change with my blog early on, is I was like, I didn't put my face out there because I was still nervous about it. I was like a sophomore in college. It was before influencers were a thing. So I was like an OG influencer.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to put my face out there. I was kind of embarrassed by it, but like nobody was buying my shit. I was like, why isn't anybody buying this stuff? And it's like, well, why would anybody follow my blog if they don't know who I am? They don't have any personal connection to me. They
Right.
don't really feel like they're a part of anything. And so really the major change in my blog when I was selling products was I like got over myself and started putting myself out there and like actually building a community. I actually have a voice note from like 2018 on my phone that I like listened to something or found inspiration somewhere. And I was like, the future of business is community. And I'm like so excited about it. And now it's so funny because it's like, yeah, no shit. It's like, no duh, what I said in the video, in the thing, but it was like such a monumental, like, oh my gosh, like I really think like relationship marketing is what is going to be the future. And relationship marketing was really huge in like 1980s, like for accountants and financial advisors and like service-based people in person, because there's transactional and there's relationship. And so those, you needed a relationship in order to talk about investments and like money and big things. And I just saw that and I was like, there's so much of product-based business that is transactional that people are just like trying to get as many in there, but relationship marketing. And I saw all the statistics that it was more profitable. People stick around longer. You have to work less in order to like actually, because you just have people buying from you. The customer lifetime value is so much longer. I was like, why are people teaching this in product-based world? And so I started to try to figure out frameworks, and that's really where it came from. So it really was. And then I saw it working, and then I was like, okay, now that was what I was teaching. And it was it was teaching it in 2019. And I think now it's 10 times more important than it even was in 2019, especially with AI, things feeling very robotic, with like, a lot of these, even like master resell rights, like there's so many things out there that like took the person out of absolutely everything, that if you really want to have a personal brand or a business that is like coincides with a personal brand, that community, the connection, the personal, everything is important.
Yeah, I think a lot of people assume like product-based businesses, the founder's not important, but I've been talking about it a
Oh
lot
gosh.
with my clients, like the founder's so critically important. Who's doing it right? Like product-based businesses, founders that or just founders in general, that you're like,
Yeah.
they know their shit. They are crushing. I have my own thoughts, but I want to know like who do you feel is it? Because you do a lot of
Yeah.
research, you like know your industry well.
Oh yeah.
Well, who should we be following? Give us the names.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of businesses that do it really well. The Good Girl Snacks girls, I don't know if you've seen them. They're the pickle company. They're like best friends, and they started building a pickle company that's just like for the girls, and it's really fun. I love their
Pickle
marketing.
company for the girls. I
They're
love
pickles for the gals. I mean, come on, who doesn't love a pickle? And they walked into the pickle aisle. They were like, this branding is all terrible. There's like emus or like storks. Like, we don't want that. And so they were like, all right, let's like build a fun pickle brand. I think they do really, really well. There's so many out there, but I'm also seeing it. Like, I have brands that are multi 7-figure brands reach out to me and be like, hey, can I come on your podcast? They want to have that founder facing journey. Even brands that like haven't had it, I've had people come to me and be like, hey, I want to add that founder facing element. How do I do it? And so I think like the Good Girl Snacks girls are really crushing it. There's a lot of people, what are they called? The Good Day Squares. Good Day Squares is doing the chocolate company. They do really, really well. Again, it's
That's
just
the
like,
word good in your name, and apparently that's
yeah, I guess that's just the theme. There's so many out there, and it's really the brands that we see disrupting are not afraid to get their founder in the forefront. I do think there's people of all different like stages of it too. Like Set Active did this for a really long time. They had a podcast about the growth of their business that they've since shut down. And I do think there's right ways and there's wrong ways to founder facing companies. It also adds another layer, because if you are going to be the face of your brand, you matter. And I think it's more, you're an influencer that now has a brand. There's a lot of influencer brands out there that you can see the good and you can see the bad. I mean, look at like Hailey Bieber is on a whole other level, but like she has been really active inside of her business for a really long time. And that was why her business was able to be so successful. But you can also see brands like Beyonce has a brand, and I don't even know the name of it, but everybody knows Hailey Bieber is the face of Rhode. It's like, some even like celebrity brands, some people do it really well and some people don't. Some people you're just like, I put my name on it, like Skims. She's involved. She's in there. You can tell it's her brand. Like, nipple piercing bras, you can tell it's her brand. There are other people. She has Emma Grede as the business brain, but now Emma Grede is also trying to build her personal brand to get people to see that founder facing element of it all. So we can see it big and small, from people that are just, startups, founders starting out, as well as celebrities that are finding out that, just putting a name on it isn't enough anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was thinking of Baze because, like,
Oh, Paige, we talked about this on my podcast. She does so well.
Did you say she's coming on your podcast?
No. We talked about this on my podcast.
Oh, I was like,
I wish.
like, she is. I totally misheard you, but honestly, I'm gonna manifest that into the fucking world. But she's honestly, her products are not like they're very cool, they're very innovative, but the quality I would not say is like amazing.
She's got great marketing. Yeah.
Literally the marketing. And the other thing I just want to say about Hailey Bieber, this is like not a question, this is just sharing.
Wow. Yeah.
That I'm really proud of and I'm really impressed with, because I've never been in the like shit on Hailey Bieber.
Oh my gosh.
I just like I get so pissed about it.
Me
But
too.
I really appreciate about Hailey Bieber. So there's several creators, Black female founded creators, and just incredible women that are, you know, influencers and have really tried to advocate for brands being inclusive. And Hailey Bieber individually called them and had them approve her formulas. They were not inclusive enough. And they are now praising her as a founder who genuinely cares. And
yes,
it has been like Loria and a couple other really big like Black creators. Like,
yeah.
And obviously I am a white woman, so this is not
me too.
affect me, but I'm very inspired by it because this was not something I really realized. I never had the awareness that like brands weren't inclusive with skin color until they are now praising her, of like someone who like came in and literally was calling them from her personal cell phone to be like, I care about the way that you feel about my products. And like, I was blown away, and it made me a lifelong Rhode fan, not just because I think her products are cool and good and easy, and I think she's very innovative and I appreciate a good founder, but like, that was incredible. And then like, there's a company online, I'm gonna have to send it to you. It's a cookie company. Every day I'm like, I'm gonna order these damn cookies, even though I don't even know if they taste good. But what he does is, when this is more of like a cheeky way of marketing, but he literally will hop on a cookie company. You wouldn't think you need to know the founder of a cookie company, but brands will message him and be like, hey, can you send me free cookies for my bachelorette, whatever? Like, we're lovers of your cookies. I don't know if you're talking about this guy.
I think I do. I don't know the name of it, but I've seen them.
Yes, I'm gonna have to find it and like tag it. But like, what he does is he'll be like, awesome, what's your order numbers? And they're like, oh, well, we've actually never ordered before, but we always want to try it, whatever. And he's like,
but we love your cookies so much.
His account, his company's blown up. He's like, I mean, he's so funny. And like, I know he's like shitting on people or DMing him. But, like, people are like, they're totally on his side. And he built this whole
I'm on his side. Yeah.
Companies. And like, you know, we do things differently on the local business, whatever. But like, founders involved in businesses that do it exceptionally well, like there's so much to learn about that. And also just the thing that I actually take away as a business owner is they connect with their customers. They literally talk to them. They ask them. And people always ask me why I grew so fast. All I did on TikTok was respond to comments. All I did. I talked to my audience. And I think for you, you do an exceptional job. You did that with the podcast. I did that in TikTok. But like, it's actually the same concept.
It is. It's just my top of funnel to nurture point. Yeah.
They can bring people in. And so if someone was trying to grow quickly, I know everyone, there's a lot of different tips, but someone wanted to integrate the things that you know about community, maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's the way that they're creating content, whatever it is, what would be like your tip, your takeaway for someone who's like, I want to build a founder brand that people connect with, people feel part of, and I want to do it the right way? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I have like 3 C's to this. And the first one you've already touched on is collaboration. Collaboration, you need to find a marketing channel that's a two-way street. And whether that's Instagram stories, you can build an incredible community on Instagram stories because they have a lot of ways to make it a two-way street. You know, you can use question polls, you can do different polls, different things like that. The anonymous questions, you can just chat like you're on FaceTime. You can really connect with people on Instagram stories, but you can do it on TikTok, you can do it on podcasts, you can do it long form vlogs on YouTube, whatever. You just need one form of content that is fully a two-way street most of the time. At least like you prioritize a two-way. Too many people are looking at marketing like a forum as like, let me just get my message out there, but you're really talking with people. You got to be talking with people. So the first C is collaboration. The next one is connection. We're seeing this across the board with Gen Alpha, Gen Z, young millennials. Like the new consumer base cares about values of the brand. They really do, more than any other consumer base before. And they're going to stick by it. We see all of that. Like people are willing to ride or die through it. Just like you said with Rhode, is like you are a lifelong fan because you loved that value system that Haley had. And so understanding that you need some sort of a connection point, and whether that is a value, whether that is who you are, something quirky about you, you know, they need some sort of connection point. So having some of that personal brand, like your personal brand does really, really connect with people, whether you're a product or a service-based business. And it can be something nothing to do with your business. It can be a story of why you started your business. It can be how you're running your business, but it also can just be you as the founder. Like your girl can't have like literally Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue because I'm sweating and it's too spicy for me. And it's something that like my clients find funny. And like, it's something I've talked about where I'm like, here, I have this ketchup and it's kind of spicy. And it's like a point that like people, haha, in my stories about, and it's just like a personal connection point that has nothing to do with business. And that can't just be like coffee and dogs because it's something that everybody has. Like people need something to remember you by, whether it's a story, whatever. And so we have connection, we have collaboration, and then we have communication. People do need proper messaging in order to really want to work with you and like to understand why they should want you. So there is a point here that you do need to communicate, you know, the PAS stuff, the problem aware agitation, like people do need to communicate that, communicate your value, communicate your authority, and what really sets you apart from everybody else. I think a major part of communication, especially in a saturated industry, is like there's all of these people doing the very similar thing to you, and to say that they're not, you're lying. But what makes you different? Like what makes you separate from them? And how can these people really know? And I think those are really big. So communication, collaboration, and connection pieces are really huge to build a community.
Couldn't have said it better. And I 1000% agree with you. I think this is where the market is going. I think this is where brands are going. And I think that if you want to stand out these days, like it can't just be you're good at content or you have a good product anymore. There's so much more to that. And so I could not have said it better myself. I have one final question for you that we always ask our guests. What is something that you are indulging on right now? It can be anything, a food, a podcast, it better be mine. Just anything that you're enjoying, loving, that you want to share with our community that they can go and check out after this.
Oh gosh, yes, I love that. I've been making lavender lattes at my house every morning, and I feel like they really are adding a lot. I made my own lavender syrup. That's an indulging piece of every day. It's been delicious.
Wow. Is it hard to do?
No, I just got lavender. We live in an area, there's lavender growing everywhere. And so I've got little sprigs of lavender. You take the little purple things and you like simmer it in honey on the stove. And then I pour it into my lattes.
Lexi is listening to this like she's going to do this right after. Like she's writing this down. Like I'm very well aware she's writing this down. This is amazing.
Yes, it's so good. And it's funny, my mom like brought me a sprig of lavender and it was her idea. And she's been making them up and whipping them up for me. And she's just here visiting for a week. And so I'm like, oh wait, I'm doing this. This is so good. But from a business sense, I'm indulging. I listen to podcasts every morning and I feel like I think there's a big piece, we always talk about this element of business of, you need to be surrounded by the people that are achieving bigger things than you. And I think you can also do that even if they're not your friends. I think you can do that in a podcast. And I have friends without a doubt that are achieving huge things, but I think you can do that by consuming podcasts in the morning and getting really inspired. And so I've really started taking a slower morning and actually like listening to business podcasts, not feeling like I have to be doing 100 other things while listening to it. I can actually just like go for a walk, listen to a business podcast and get inspired and be around people that are, whether it's Emma Greed, who is like the Kardashian brand business gal. She's incredible. Love her. Her podcast is incredible. There's so many different pieces, but indulging in podcasts before work and kind of just like, taking a slower morning rather than feeling like I have to jump right into business.
With your lavender latte.
My lavender latte. What a glorious day.
I love it. I'll have to try that. I'm like a very like sweet, like I like stuff that's for like 5-year-olds. So
yeah, me too.
Like chocolate, caramel, drizzle, blah, blah, blah. But I was in Chicago this weekend and I don't know what it was in, but it did have purple in it. I don't know if it was lavender, but it did have purple. So I can attest that it was very good. It was not as sweet as I usually go, but you know what? Got to expand out of the comfort zone. So lavender latte.
It's so good.
If you want the recipe, or the squeezing tactic. I don't know anything about cooking or anything. The squeezing tactic.
Like milking the lavender.
I'll connect you with Madison, but thank you so much for coming on. I had so much fun talking with you. Had so many things. I wrote down the 3C method. I'm going to be implementing that for my own self. So I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.